Welcome to Strengths Champion Solutions, where we help organizations, teams, and leaders to grow stronger, work smarter, and lead wiser. I'm your host, Brent Bannon. I'm a global strengths champion and MCC coach that is helping you today to learn more about how to lead wiser with confident humility. Confident humility. First of all, let me quickly say that we are growing our brand at Strengths Champion Solutions. And if you have been connected with me for any time, you know my tagline of grow stronger, work smarter, live richer, which is at the heart, especially of our entrepreneurial business leader solutions, products, and services. However, we are expanding our brand so that we are focusing more not only on growing stronger with strengths, but working smarter with strengths in the employee life cycle and inside of the culture of organizations. But now we are expanding and making it clearer to help organizations, teams, and leaders to lead wiser. And when I think of leaders, I think of people leaders. I think of business leaders, whether you are an executive in a large business or you are a small business leader. You own your own business, and all of us are leaders. And also, I would like to put in there that many of you are also strengths champion leaders. You are helping lead the revolution of championing strengths in your organization and in people's lives around the world. And so today I want to focus on this lead wiser piece because I think many of us are mixed up and confused about what a wise leader really is. And first of all, let me just say that a leader obviously has the ability and the desire to influence others. It's not only to be an individual contributor, but they want to be someone who is respected. They want to be someone who can communicate clearly. They want to be someone who understands their strengths and their weaknesses and authentically being themselves, serving others for the good of mankind and their organization. In order to do that, we have to understand these two important dichotomies of leadership, and that is one, confidence, and two, humility. I love the term confident humility. I'm not sure who actually came up with that term first. If you know, I'd love for you to put that into the show notes and let us know where that comes from. But I will tell you, I have read about confident humility through Adam Grant's work in his podcast, as well as his book, Think Again. And I want to highlight some of the things that I've learned from not only from him, but also in my own experience of being a leader originally in a nonprofit, leading a board of people, as well as leading many volunteers in that organization. And then also in my own company that I owned with my business partner in counseling before I got into coaching. And that is absolutely one place that I learned my strengths and weaknesses with management and leadership. And I appreciate Maggie also putting in there is a really great book by Dan Kent. I have not actually read that book yet, but it is on my list about confident humility. And so today, A couple of things. First of all, I want to be vulnerable with you and share like three different areas of my life. And number one, tennis. Number two, strengths. And number three, leadership. And I can tell you, I remember when I first picked up a tennis racket, how humbling it was to play tennis with other people who were great at tennis. They had so much more skills and knowledge and practice and wisdom. And I felt so little and so weak compared to them. And now that I've been playing tennis for over 35 years, going on 40 years, it's still interesting to me that when I am overconfident, I tend to make more errors and I don't play my best. But when I go into a tennis match with a balance of confident humility, what it does is it raises my focus, it raises my ability to leverage my strengths and manage my weaknesses. And so in my tennis, I know I am not a great singles player. I am not patient enough or consistent enough. My weakness is playing someone who can baseline all day long. However, I have learned that my strengths as a tennis player is at the net. It's in doubles. I have fat, quick hands and fairly quick on my feet. So I'm an aggressive, attacking type player. That's my strengths. However, having the right partner that balances me out is so important in tennis. And so this is also true in business or in life. And so it's important that we find that confident humility. Now, the second part I'd like to share with you for just a moment is the area of strengths. Many of you have discovered your Clifton strengths, or you've used some kind of strengths assessment to formally get a language for your strengths. It's amazing to me how many of us are what I call blind to our strengths. We suffer from strengths blindness. And typically when we have strengths blindness, then we see ourselves as very weak. We don't see our talents. We don't see our abilities. We don't see our potential. We only see our flaws. And we're very myopic on those weaknesses because of strengths blindness. But I've also seen the opposite. And that is sometimes when we begin to get a language for our strengths, we have this strengths arrogance. And this arrogance is the idea that I am better than others because of certain strengths that I have, or that I am smarter than others because of certain strengths that I have. Or we believe that our strengths are all flowing in superpowers. In other words, we think there is no room for development or growth or to maximize our strengths. And that is just totally out of reality. What is reality is that learning how to embrace your strengths means that you have a language for your strengths. You know when you're operating at that maximum level, and you know when you are operating in the shadow side, or the side that is the blind spot of your strengths. And so part of being a great leader is actually understanding not only the superpower of your strengths, but the blind spots and the need for development to maximize your strengths. And by the way, if you have not downloaded and got the new Clifton Strengths Leaders Report, then I highly recommend this because you'll be able to look at your top 10 strengths, talents, and you'll be able to see where's the superpower and where is potential blind spots, what we sometimes refer to as the refined versus the raw parts of our talents and strengths. And so I can tell you in myself that I have a language for my strengths. I absolutely have much more awareness around my strengths than I used to. And I will also say that I am still a novice at learning parts of my strengths that are still hidden, that are still unknown. And that means not only the superpower, but also the blind spot of my strength. So that means that I need relationships. I need other people to be able to feel safe enough to say, Brent, I hear your command being pushy. Or Brent, just because you have focus and you are an amazing coach and listener, you're not listening right now. Just a little a fun self-effacing humor. The other day, my wife and I were having dinner and talking with another person. And this particular person was sharing her story and I was asking her questions. And it was hilarious because she had just said two or three things in our listening, in our discussion. And I asked her a question and my wife started laughing and said, Brent, she just said that. And all I could do is just kind of joke at myself and say, by the way, I get paid for being a professional listener. And the other person just laughed at it. And I said, can you believe people actually pay me? And I can't even hear you very well right now. And, so I have limitations, even how well I listen and when you get the ultimate best listener out of Brent Bannon versus the times that I'm not a very good listener. So here's the third area. The third area is about your leadership potential. And that is, how do you lead wiser? Well, number one, it is a combination of understanding what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. But there's also some other factors that I quickly want to take you through. And if you would like to get a confident humility assessment, then I'll be glad to lead you to one. But here's some questions, quick questions to ask yourself. On a scale, I want you to think about between these two statements. I take responsibility for my mistakes versus I blame others and come up with excuses. So confident humility is able to take responsibility when we make a mistake. And we do not try to blame or shame anyone else. And by the way, we don't shame ourselves with our mistakes. We actually have self-compassion, which I talked about in my last post. The second question is, I ask for help when I cannot find a solution versus I rarely ask for help. If you're the person who cannot and will not ask for help and you are only a do-it-yourselfer and you're not willing to even invest or pay for someone else to help you, then you've got a lot of work to do with your confident humility. The third question, I appreciate the talents of others versus I am jealous of the talents of others. So it's not only about embracing our own talents, but it's also noticing and seeing those talents in other people. The fourth question, I give praise to the people that did the work versus I take the credit of other people's work. Again, leaders who are confidently humble can praise and specifically recognize other people's wins and successes. Number 5, I have a proper awareness of my strengths versus I tell people how great I am. So obviously, if we are, and I really love what Adam Grant talks about in his book, Think Again. He talks about when we have overconfidence that we tend to be in 3 different modes, either the preaching mode, the prosecuting mode, or the politicking mode. And I have been in all 3 sometime in my life. And so preaching mode is basically we are pounding our beliefs about ourselves or others. Or the prosecuting mode is we rarely believe what other people are telling us, and we're listening for the holes in their thinking, versus the politicking mode is where we adopt other people's beliefs because we want to be liked and accepted. And so he talks about getting out of this overconfident cycle, that we need to be in what he calls a rethinking cycle as a leader. And that means when we have some doubt about our strengths, doubt about our leadership, that the doubt can actually lead to curiosity. What is that doubt about? Wonder what I could learn from this doubt. How could this doubt actually help me to grow and open my mind more? And this curiosity leads to discovery in the rethinking cycle. And when you rethink something from a new perspective, then it leads you to confident humility, because you know that there's still more to learn and to grow. And I love, in fact, I actually heard this podcast when Adam Grant was interviewing Daniel Kahneman, and who is not only a prolific psychology scientist, but also has worked with Gallup over the years as one of their contributing scientists. And when Adam Grant asked Daniel Kahneman, he said, what happens when people find flaws in your research? He asked that question to Daniel Kahneman. And Daniel Kahneman's eyes lit up. And he said, it's wonderful. I get a chance to be less wrong. See, that's the mind of a scientist, is being willing to experiment instead of preaching or prosecuting or politicking. We are opening our mind with curiosity to discover something we may not have known. And this is what helps us to lead wiser, is confident humility. Now, a few other questions we can ask ourselves about that helps us to measure confident humility versus prideful insecurity is, I have a proper awareness of my weaknesses versus I tell people how worthless I am. If you are telling people, oh, I'm not good at that, oh, I'm terrible at that, oh, I'm not as good as so-and-so, then you are at the extreme of not having confidence and knowing your superpowers. And it appears as humility, but actually it's insecurity. I'm curious, what is your definition of confidence versus humility? There's a lot of different work out there around these two topics, but yeah, put that into the chat And let me know, what is your definition between the difference between confidence versus humility? Here's another question. I genuinely thank people for the praise they give me versus I thank people and then continue to talk about my accomplishments. Here's another question for you. I communicate difficult information in a clear, secure manner versus I avoid communicating difficult information because I do not want people to think badly about me. Again, this is really an insecure people pleaser. And guess what? It's going to be difficult for you to lead wiser, being fearful of how other people think and feel about you. The next question to ponder. I have the knowledge and skills to do my work well versus I pretend I have the knowledge and skills to do my work. So yeah, you can hear that imposter syndrome type of thinking here. Confident humility is able to see our knowledge and skills and strengths, as well as to quickly be confidently vulnerable, using the language of Brene Brown, when we are weak and we need help. Another question to ponder. I can express my sincere emotions with others versus I feel superior to others. So when someone is tearful, does that mean you're more superior because you don't cry? So if someone is more introverted and introspective versus extroverted and communicative like you, do you see yourself as more superior? Or do you see that they have different talents and values? Another question to ponder. I praise others when they win and I lose versus I have to win and I hate to lose. Oh, I have a little bit of experience with this one. I do have competition at number 5. And I will say, I've definitely seen my ups and downs with this one right here. I can be sometimes the world's best cheerleader, cheering other people on. And at the same time, there's that little secret voice in my head that says, oh, Brent, you're a loser because that person won in that particular area. And I have to manage that irrational thinking and also the blind spot of that particular strength and talent of competition. So here's another one. I embrace feedback versus I avoid feedback. By the way, the most confident, humble, vulnerable leaders are the ones who will invest in professional coaching. Those that do not have confident humility will not invest into coaching. Another question to ponder. I believe accountability is helpful and necessary versus I don't like being accountable to anyone but myself. There's something with the do-it-yourselfer and also the person that says, it's me and me alone versus how can I open up myself to relationships, to teamwork. And finally, I accurately communicate data versus I exaggerate data to make myself look better. Ouch! Here's another one that I have to give you a little self-effacing humor on. I think my strength of futuristic, probably competition in there as well, but also achiever. has been known to exaggerate and pad the numbers. And guess what? My wife is one of the most practical, realistic, and most lovable people in the world. But she has called me out on this throughout the years of our marriage. And thankfully, for her feedback, I've been able to see that this is a flaw. That, Brent, if you share a number, it needs to be accurate. It does not need to be exaggerated. Now, I can tell you, roughly 90% of the time, it's accurate numbers these days. You're probably questioning how accurate 90% is right now, right? I get it. But I am holding myself accountable that, Brent, don't pad the numbers. Don't make things seem better than what they really are. Speak the truth, no matter what that number is. So I can tell you, I have plenty of room to continue to grow in this whole idea of leading wiser. And I have a feeling that all of us do. I'm glad we have coaches and mentors and masterminds that can help us definitely grow in that. Okay, thank you, Amy, for putting your thoughts in here. So Amy says, I feel like confidence is knowing what you are good at and at the same time accepting what you aren't without needing to shame it or seek external reassurance about it. Oh yeah, such wisdom right there, Amy. Thank you for sharing that. And I think it's similar to my definition is that confident humility is knowing the reality of what your strengths and what your superpowers are, what you're good at, and also being realistic and vulnerable, not just with yourself, but with others about the things that you're not good at. And let me end with this reminder, and that is in the strengths movement, one of the things that some people have said is negative about the strengths movement is that we don't talk about weaknesses. And the reality is that we focus and leverage strengths and we manage weaknesses. We do not ignore weaknesses. If we ignore weaknesses, we will not only fail ourselves, but we will fail our organization and our teams and our customers. So we have to be willing to know what our weaknesses are, to be confidently vulnerable with those weaknesses, with the people, obviously, that we trust. That's appropriate. And at the same time, as we do that, it helps us to continue that rethinking cycle. One of my favorite ways of looking at learning is that first we gather information to learn. Second of all, we practice the information. There is an implementation to the learning, or it's just head knowledge. But third of all, there's a whole nother level of learning when you start teaching that information to other people, because they learn differently than us. And so if you've ever been a teacher or a workshop leader or a speaker or a professor, you love teaching because then you learn even more by teaching. But here's the fourth part of learning, which I think connects with confident humility. Everything that you think you knew about a particular subject, there is always more to learn. And to learn it all over again with fresh eyes, that is a whole nother level of learning. It's rethinking and looking at the possibility that, oh, I didn't have full perspective. And now I'm seeing another perspective. And guess what? That cycle will continue. You'll gain the information about something, you'll practice that information, you'll teach that information to others, and then you will humble yourself and say, you know what? I'm a beginner. I don't know anything. Teach me fresh and new. So I want to invite you, if you would like to grow in your confident humility, I actually want to show you a new page on my website that is called Strengths Based Masterminding. And in these 3 different masterminds that I'm offering, there is what I call a Strengthspreneur mastermind. And this is basically for business leaders, entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants, anyone who's in a service-based profession, and you want to grow your business. And you get accountability, you get a community, you get an online course. There's something new that I've started called a focus lab that you will get also once a month. And in that lab, you'll get a little brief teaching, but mainly it's for you to bring your project that you're working on to focus on that. And then we'll have discussion and accountability on those. There's also the Strengths Champion Mastermind. And really, this particular mastermind, I am focusing more on helping people leaders and coaching leaders who want to champion strengths to also get mentor coaching for strengths-based coaching. And also, if you're working on your International Coaching Federation mentor coaching hours, you're able to get up to 7 hours of mentor coaching in this particular group. And it will meet 1 time a month, the Strengths Champion Mastermind. And then finally, the 3rd mastermind is the Leadership Mastermind. Again, this particular mastermind is again for people leaders, business leaders. It could be executives who are in big business or business leaders in a small business, or even coaches who see themselves as leading their business. And if you want to grow your leadership ability, that's what this particular mastermind is about. And again, there's an online course and a focus lab that comes with that. So you'll see these 3 mastermind options. Again, Strengthspreneur, the Strengths Champion, and the Leadership Mastermind. So I hope this information has been helpful to you today. And I hope that it encourages you to keep digging, keep researching, keep getting feedback from other people about your own confident humility. So until next time, continue to grow stronger, work smarter, and